I'm Linda Hirsch, and this is EdCast, a program created and produced by educators for everyone interested in education. Black men and other minority males have struggled in college for some time. The pandemic made matters worse. According to the National Student Clearinghouse Research Center, Black male enrollment at U.S. colleges fell by about 11% between fall 2019 and fall 2020, and almost another 5% as of fall 2021. What accounts for the Black male lag in college enrollment and completion? What can be done to improve their situation? Today, EdCast speaks with the Deputy Director of the CUNY Black Male Initiative, a university-wide program focusing on furthering the success of Black men and other men of color. We will discuss some of the unique challenges they face and listen to some students speak about their concerns and successes. Now on EdCast. Joining me today is Jorge Alguera, the Deputy Director of the CUNY Black Male Initiative and a rising fourth-year law student at the CUNY School of Law. Mr. Alguera has been with CUNY since 2015 and with CUNY BMI's central office since February 2019. Drawing on his life experiences, he seeks to provide opportunities to students who may be unaware or marginalized from education and career opportunities. Welcome to EdCast, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's
Sure.
a pleasure.
Let's talk a little bit about the CUNY Black Male Initiative.
Sure.
What is it, and why was it started?
Sure. So the CUNY Black Male Initiative came to fruition as the product of a task force that was put by the City Council in 2005. And so many recommendations came from that council, and part of it was to create kind of like a system of or programs that could help Black male students within the CUNY system, as the name, right? CUNY Black Male Initiative. However, it's not exclusive to just Black males. It's open to any enrolled student in the CUNY system. So we have students who identify as female, who are of Asian descent, Latin American, Latinx descent, so on and so forth.
So what were some of the specific goals that you have in terms of the CUNY Black Male Initiative?
Well, one of the most important to university and to us all is retention, right? Making sure that men of color who are in the system not only are making it here, but that we are completing and we're retained within the system so that we reach the ultimate goal of completing, having a degree, and having additional supports that perhaps we didn't know we needed. A lot of us are first generation college students, and so navigating college becomes a little bit more difficult when you have nobody to turn to. So that's a little bit of what CUNY Black Male Initiative does and aims to do.
Are you seeing a decrease in the enrollment of Black men at the college, and do you work with that in any way?
Well, across the university, enrollment is down. Ironically, during the pandemic years, our program actually increased enrollment, which is fantastic, and retention as well. And so when it comes to Black and Latino males, one of the things that we have to kind of look at is the fact that it's not just one role. We're not just students. A lot of times we're also breadwinners for the family or helping the family take care of some of those things. So uh, when it comes to what enrollment is, we saw some attrition. We weren't as high as we would like to be, but ultimately, the efforts of every CUNY BMI program director is to stay engaged with them so that they don't feel they're alone, and they remain engaged that way.
And what about the graduation rates of the students in your program?
Graduation rates obviously vary. This year, I'm kind of tired of the amount of traveling in a good way because I've had to visit so many graduation at across the university and to see, we've had 24 graduates in one particular program at the CUNY School of Law and 133 at yet another one. So graduation rates tend to vary also. But by and large, I think we're kind of hitting the goals that we want to. Obviously, we want to increase those,
Right.
but we're kind of hitting our stride.
So what would you say is unique about the Black male experience that would prompt us to have a CUNY BMI?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, right, the roles of Black and Latino males at home is sometimes multifaceted, where they are, like I said, breadwinners, or sometimes they have to provide um, childcare or even elderly care at home. And so understanding that much more than just what happens academically on campus is what's affecting the retention, or what's affecting even the concentration of our students. Um, we've seen that Black and Latino males are kind of are specifically situated where they need those additional supports,
Mhm.
and that's kind of like the impetus in Black Male Initiative.
We found a video online by a young black male who has a series of
Mm-hmm.
YouTube videos, and one of his was called "Why Black People Fail College
Mm.
STEM."
Mm.
And he specifically speaks to what he sees as some of the issues that black men have to confront in college. We're just going to roll a brief excerpt of that YouTube video for you, and I'd just like to get your response to what he says, okay?
Sure.
In terms of family support, a lot of Black families or Black people going through college typically have a lot going on at home. So it could be something along the lines of like difficulty getting the transportation to get to college, difficulty purchasing the required materials, difficulty getting even support from your parents or family because you might be the outlier and the only one going ahead and trying to make yourself better because you might come from a very difficult background. And even just kind of going through the motions, and even let's say you kind of got past some of those struggles, now you're in a situation where you're in a college, especially in STEM majors that are predominantly um, white or predominantly other types of ethnicities that are typically stereotyped to go into those roles. You find it more and more challenging to integrate yourself into those communities because you either have to downplay your blackness to a degree, or you need to be a little bit more agreeable. So you can't show yourself frowning. You need to be smiling all the time to make people feel like you're less of a threat, quote unquote. And this kind of translates itself into the classroom as well, where a lot of Black students don't feel comfortable asking questions because you don't want to look dumb, because as a minority, you're kind of placed in this role by others where you're the view of the whole Black community, because you're kind of tended to represent everybody. And what I mean by that is any kind of mistake that you make is attributed to the Black community, but any kind of success or smartness or like intelligence that you kind of show, it becomes attributed to your surroundings or the like the other people in your class, or like the greatness of the professor or something along those lines.
So, what is your reaction to what he says?
Yeah, I think his take is spot on with a lot of what our students tell us. Many times we've had students, they have to make the decision: do I get to school or do I eat breakfast, right? And so this is some part of what we're striving to get more funding on as far as CUNY BMI is concerned. The notion of feeling like you don't belong in a particular space is throughout, myself included. Being in school, there are times where I identify with saying, "Well, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to sound like I don't know what I'm talking about, or I'm unprepared," not knowing that there are so many factors that lead to where you are. I think the most salient thing for me from his video is the support at home when you're the only one doing it.
Hmm.
It is difficult to have your family know the level of support that you need if all resources are available, right? Beyond just go to class, here's your food, right? And so a lot of times the lack of support is also due to, for lack of a better word, ignorance, right? Just like family doesn't know what they should do or they have to do. And because of a lot of our students come from marginalized communities, we also see that the community might pull them a different way. And so it becomes a little bit harder for the student to stay focused. I also think part of the issue is, and is part of why in our um, model of how we operate, is that the college campus, as he was saying, doesn't feel like home, doesn't feel like a community, doesn't feel like this is where I belong, even if it's just for these 4 hours that I'm here for. And so that's part of what we try to do to create that community on each of our programs so that they feel supported, so that they know if I have a question, I have someone I trust to ask how to deal with the imposter syndrome. How do I deal with being the only student of color in a class that makes me feel, as he said, as an outsider or perhaps ostracized from the learning experience.
You know, I think a lot of our students would be surprised to hear how many of us have imposter syndrome. I think I saw an article once where the title was, "Doesn't everybody have imposter syndrome?" or something like that. But he also says that very interesting statement about, first of all, being agreeable and not being threatening, and also representing the Black community. So that if you make a mistake, it's on the Black community. If you succeed, it's credit given to somebody else. What was your take on that?
Yeah, that's very interesting. I recently had a conversation with a colleague of mine about that kind of burden that Black Latino males kind of carry, where you're thinking, if I'm in this space, I have to succeed, and that external pressure of if I don't, is like, well, the entire support system or the entire uh, cultural base of where you're coming from is responsible for you not succeeding in this. And when you get to a higher ed, perhaps you almost detach yourself from that, or you're supposed to, in order to grow, and it almost, it plucks you away from, or at least it perverts to pluck you away from your entire experience prior to college, and then it's no longer home that got you here. It's all the rest of the supports. I think again, it goes back to the community that is built within your higher education experience. Prior to this position, I was an academic advisor for another CUNY school, and one of the things I would tell students is that if you are only going to class and going home, or going to class and going home, you're missing out on a lot of what college is supposed to give you, because your networking and your jobs are going to come from all of that. And so for us at CUNY BMI, figuring out the balance between how to get students to stay a little bit longer on campus. This is in our mentoring. Our mentors receive a stipend, so that we understand you don't have to rush to another job. You can stay on campus and partake in the community, and also, you know, you're making some money to alleviate some of those.
You know, in doing some of the research for this program, I was reading about Black men in college, and one of the things I read, I believe it was, I'm looking at my notes, for Derek Perkins, who directs the Center for Male Engagement at the Community College of Philadelphia, has said that he feels that teachers often have a negative view of Black students, and that Black men may be socially and culturally conditioned not to ask for help. Do you think that there's truth in that?
Well, I'll start with the latter question
Yeah.
first. I think yes, Black and Latino men are, for the most part, kind of conditioned to not ask for help. You have to figure it out, and it's not until the water is up to here that you're like, oh, maybe I should,
Maybe I should,
find a boat or something. So yeah, I concur with that sense. As far as the teachers, I think part of it is just lack of social competence. Dr. Chris Emden, who was a director of STEM at Columbia, he used to host a conference at Columbia and wrote a couple of books that talks about that teachers come into spaces, right? A lot of teachers come from out of the community into the Bronx, into the Queens, and so on, and they expect the child or the student to mold themselves to what they're expecting in the classroom, but the teacher never makes an effort to understand what's happening outside. And so there's always that dichotomy of insider outsider. And a lot of times that same reticence that the student said earlier about not wanting to speak out because you might come off as dumb and so on and so forth, that silence is taken as this student doesn't want to be here. This student is difficult to work with. The student is not prepared, so on and so forth. So I feel there might be some truth to that, but it's not across the board.
Now let's go back to CUNY BMI and what you do to help students overcome some of these obstacles. I know you have 6 areas that you really want to work with, so let's take a look at some of them and tell us what are some of the supports that you do to help enrollment and matriculation, to improve the GPA, to help students adjust to college? What are some of the supports they might receive?
Yeah, so we have 6 pillars. Four of them are essentially student facing, and then two are more for administrators and the college itself to support the initiative. So you have institutional commitment, which a lot of times comes in the form of just having a space for the student or the program to hold their their kind of whatever supports that they're having. Additionally, an advisory committee of having some of those faculty members who may think, hey, this population of students needs support. How do we do that? Then we have social emotional learning or social emotional programming that comes a lot of times it comes in the form of barbershops, or they're just like events where you can come there, take your mask off, as a lot of students say, and be you, be yourself, and talk about what's happening in the moment that's affecting you beyond the classroom. So we saw that kind of skyrocket during the George Floyd demonstration, so on and so forth. Academic enhancements are kind of like our bread and butter, along with mentoring, but academic enhancement also looks a little bit different depending on which campus you're in. So there are campuses that have a textbook lending library, so the upperclassmen kind of just leave the textbooks there for underclassmen to take on the, like the English 101s or the counting 101s, so on and so forth. A lot of times is direct tutoring, which a lot of us are rebranding to not just tutoring, because we found that a lot of students think tutoring means I lack, and so we've rebranded to academic coaches, because we say even stars have coaches, right? Even Jimmy Butler or Michael Jordan, so on and so forth. So we have the academic coaching, and then the peer-to-peer mentoring. It's exactly that. I remember as a high school student many months ago, when we were getting ready to leave, they said, when you're in college, you're by yourself. No one's there to help you. And the mentoring that we have at CUNY BMI is to nix that, to make sure that the student understands you're not here by yourself. This is not the first person. You're not the first person to go through the hardships of acclimating from high school to college. Those all of them kind of combined help with the retention, because the student feels like they belong, they understand. And then one of the things that I myself like to kind of tell our students is, like, you need two people that you need to make friends with when you're in college. One is another student, and another one is an administrator. And by being part of CUNY BMI, you kind of tackle
Right.
both.
If we can briefly just go to your own personal story,
Sure.
just briefly, what helped? Tell us a little, just briefly, what were some of the obstacles you faced, and what was the help that you got to help overcome that?
Yeah, so I'm an immigrant, first generation immigrant, lived here in the U.S. for 18 years as an undocumented immigrant, and thanks to DACA, I received a work permit, and that's what allowed me to start working in my dream job, which is higher education. A lot of the support that I received was essentially that, finding an administrator that I could relate to, whether by ethnicity, by cultural experience, and then they understood that what I was looking for is someone to open doors or to show me where the next step is. And many times our students don't ask in those many words, right? It's just kind of like, hey, I was thinking, as opposed to, can you help me? And so our directors, we have retreats once a year now, where we try to acculturate them to some of these things. So for myself, um, the mentoring, tutoring, I was good. I like to say in that sense, but really important. One of the things that truly got me through undergrad and even now in law school is making sure I take care of my mental health. The mental health is truly a thing that, as again, men of color, we don't know how to ask for help. A lot of times we misconstrue the symptoms, and we think, oh, I just can't concentrate because I have so many things in my
Right.
mind, and it could be symptoms of depression, so on and so forth. So seeking that help really is what has gotten me and buoyed me to stay
That's
here.
terrific advice. One of the other supports that you offer your students that I found very interesting was helping them succeed when they leave the program, when they leave college, and you have something called dialogues. Tell us what the dialogues are, and then we're going to run a brief excerpt from one of them.
Sure. So the CUNY BMI dialogues actually evolved during the pandemic when everything was virtual. We started hosting the CUNY BMI town halls, and we would have everybody, all of our directors, be part of that, and we'll invite a couple of speakers, and that evolved into just having a panel of specific people on a specific topic to kind of have the students have it as a resource for students to reach back and look at those. And they range from career preparedness, mental health, fatherhood, help, um, cultural things. We've had dialogues on Juneteenth and what it means to the diaspora. So it's a bit of a blog, if you will, of the entire CUNY BMI offering.
Well, we're going to turn to Michael Beasley now, who was a graduate of Lima College, I believe, in 2019. He's currently a quality control technician at Disney and Disney Plus, but he's also an aspiring filmmaker. And I think he said that Disney was kind of his day job. But he's responding to a question from Ron West, I believe, that asked him, how do you market yourself? So let's hear what Michael Beasley has to say.
In terms of how I sell to a greater marketplace, I would definitely, it's like, it goes back to what I was saying earlier, know yourself. You have to know yourself so you're able to know like what to project. You have to know what you want. I remember earlier we spoke about having goals, and it's important to know your goals. I remember Denzel Washington once said, dreams without goals will just stay as dreams. So it's always important to know what you want, okay? And then when you're able to have the dream, it's important to have goals. That way you can have the stepping stones. And usually it's like, there's a lot of trial and error when it comes to this. My mom always stressed to me since I was young, it's always important to try. So even if you don't know yourself necessarily, right? It's always important to try different things. And even when you come to the point of pitching yourself or pitching your brand or pitching your product, right? The greatest way to learn is to try and to fail. That's how you understand who you are, what is your product, what is your goal. And a lot of the times right there, that's when you learn of like, okay, this is actually what I want. This is who I am.
So is this video kind of indicative of the kind of support that you give students in the program?
Well, to a large extent, yes. But again, it's important to note that the experience of the students varies depending on each campus, because each campus itself has its own culture. On top of that, each program kind of touches on different aspects of education. But we do really push this idea of putting yourself out there, making sure you're preparing yourself. Try and fail, it's fine. You know, you're still in college, it's a safe place. It doesn't mean that your career's over just because you try to network with somebody and then it failed. So we do try to push that on our students, so I understand it's safe to try, and even if you don't succeed in that moment, it doesn't mean that it's a failure completely.
So you just briefly referenced, and we did not have time to go into this, all the programs that exist on each campus for the CUNY BMI. So each CUNY campus has its own BMI program where they work with students, and are the variations on a theme, or?
Correct. So depending on the campus, it might be a little bit different. So like Ostos Community College and New York City Tech, they're more STEM based, and then the rest of the programs are a little bit more liberal artsy, if you will. But we do have some specialized, like John Jay, Rising Scholars of Justice are kind of like a law school pipeline, the same thing as the CUNY School of Law.
We're out of time. Quickly, you have an event coming up in October. If you can say it in 10 seconds.
Sure.
What's the event?
The CUNY Black Male Initiative 18th Annual Conference this year at Queens College, October 6th from 9 to 3. It also features a career and internship fair for the first time ever. So registration will open soon. I hope to see many of you there.
Thank you so much, Jorge Elguera of the CUNY Black Male Initiative. That was so informative and so helpful. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Don't go away. We'll be right back with our Ed Bites. Welcome back to this edition of Ed Bites. The SAT and ACT may be facing some new competition. The CLT, or Classic Learning Test, is gaining in popularity. Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis recently signed legislation allowing students to use it to qualify for a state scholarship program. According to the CLT's co-founder, Jeremy Wayne Tate, the CLT uses source matter that goes back to Plato and Aristotle, rather than the ACT or SAT's reliance on modern-age materials and thinkers with a more progressive perspective. The New York Times reports that this May, the U.S. Surgeon General issued a warning on the potential harm of social media to young people, observing that while social media can be beneficial, it can also negatively affect children and adolescents' mental health. He put forth recommendations for setting boundaries on children's use of social media. Diverse Issues in Higher Ed reports that community college enrollment is rebounding somewhat after large pandemic-related declines. It grew this spring by 0.5%, or 22,000 students, compared to spring 2022. However, undergraduate enrollment at nonprofit four-year institutions continued to decline. The results of the 2022 Education Next survey of public opinion finds that views on education policy often fall along party lines and are becoming more partisan. Support for mask mandates during the COVID-19 pandemic were supported by only 15% of Republican respondents. The concept of school choice is favored more by Republicans. In terms of teaching about racism, 54% of Democrats felt there was too little emphasis on racial matters compared to 10% of Republicans. That's it for this edition of EdCast. Thanks for watching.
We'd like to hear from you. Please send your thoughts and comments to cunyedcast@gmail.com.